There was a question, let me see, that we'd put, oh, right. This is about the disabilities. The little, last year, well, it was in 2016, October 2016. There was a whole thing going online on our Facebook group at the time about missing digits and so on and so forth, and I was here and it was our Friday afternoon session, and I got exasperated and just whipped out my phone and said, Maxine, do you initiate the disabled, the physically disabled, those who have digits missing, and so on and so forth? And anyway, so we cleaned up the video in terms of quality and sound and so on and so forth, and reposted it recently. And Kalisha asked a great question, which would be helpful to many people, I think, if you answered it. She says, physical handicap should not be a barrier to initiation. Now, on a similar line of thinking, I ask, how does Maxine address the issue of a person on medication for mental illness? I noticed where she says she has initiated epileptics, etc. I would love to know more of her whys. I currently have a student that is a senior, has Parkinson's, and his doctors have recently claimed he is beginning to show signs of Parkinson-induced dementia. I don't want to shut him out, but I'm fearful initiation might be a disservice, as his memory will soon be affected by the progression of this horrible disease. I don't wish in any way to sell him short of his quest to learning about the gods at all. And his attraction to the craft was our history as healers. He has me perplexed. He will never be able to carry on the duties required of the priesthood, but as a witch he can work on healing himself to the extent that he slows the progression. Elders understand, non-initiates may not. So, how would you advise?
This question really affected me. And trying to put myself in the priestess's position in dealing with this situation, and it brings the healer priestess out in me. And I think that if this person had come to me and asked for initiation and then been diagnosed before he was initiated, I would still go ahead with the initiation.
You would?
Oh yeah. We know little about dementia, but I don't know that healing slows disease down. Sometimes it speeds it up.
I mean, that's a point, isn't it?
And there is, for instance, this person, she says he's a senior, so maybe he's got funny joints and things. Well, age and experience has taught me that old people in a circle can be really useful. So
Yes.
can the disabled. They really can. We don't have to dance. We do because it's part of our being as witches to dance. But there are other ways, and I think with this person I'd initiate, and before the dementia really kicked in, I would give them ritual position. I'd train them in ritual, and it would be really intensive to a point where they were loving what they were doing. I worked with one man who was, funnily enough, he was a liberal Catholic priest, and he'd worked for many, many years with people suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia, and he knew he'd got dementia, and he would kneel at his prayer for days, and he wouldn't know, but his discipline was, while I'm there, and his Catholic priesthood it's part of their work to pray. And he knew that he hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't hurt anybody through his dementia. He died very quickly. The dementia really galloped ahead. I think because he took control of it. He took control through his priesthood and his priestly duties. When you work with the old in the craft, I mean, we talk about old people and disabled people as though they're incapable. One of our really old priestesses, Patricia, Jim and Pat, they were in their 80s. He used to bring a little milking stool with him, and because he was very badly disabled, but he could get down and onto the milking stool, and he had his work that he would do from a certain angle in the circle. His wife, Pat, she could dance the rest of the witches. You know, the youngsters would be falling out. However, there were some things she couldn't do. She couldn't do because her mind couldn't cope with them. So her ritual position, when it came to that, say we were working with chords, these older people, they taught me new ways of directing power and of guarding the circle, which brought about massive improvements to generating that power and directing it. But coming back to this case, because it really has affected me, but the responsibility of initiation. So it would be, has this man come and asked before he was diagnosed? If so, and you have given the answer, yes, I would go ahead with the initiation. But then train intensely on ritual position and ritual action or hermetic action. If not, if he hadn't have asked, but is still asking.
Oh, he hadn't asked.
If he hasn't already asked.
Before the onset of the condition, or his knowledge of the condition.
If now he's just saying, I want to be initiated now. And I don't know the man. But if I had a slight doubt, I would take it to the ritual of seeking the permission of the goddess. I would put it into that realm. There are all sorts of situations. For instance, nowadays, people much older are asking for initiation. You know, in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, it was a rare thing. I remember Bernard Ball, who was an artist. He was quite wonderful. And he came seeking initiation, and I said, oh, how old are you? And he was something in his early 50s. Oh, I said, you're a bit old. You know, the craft is a fertility religion. It's a fertility cult when it's young people. I could afford to say that then because I was comparatively young. But now it's changed and it's evolved. I think people are realising that the craft isn't just, it's not going to go away.
Also, don't you find that there are a lot of the older people, chronologically, were the same younger people back then in the 60s and 70s, and they may not have necessarily sought initiation into what is now Alexandrian or any kind of revival witchcraft. However, they've had an interest, or there was something at that time that sparked their curiosity, and they may have gone off and done other things, magically or not. It was
like
there.
Sometimes people that were initiated went away.
Yeah,
they didn't care.
Exactly.
And then they turn up 20, 30 years later. They still haven't had the training. But it is difficult to train an old dog in new tricks.
I don't know.
They're cocky, and there's one that comes to mind, and quite fit and healthy. I've never met him, but he got in touch with me on the email, and I said, oh, well, there's a coven in Oswestry, And he went along, and the priestess accepted him. He wasn't there very long before he started to get really cocky. You know, I've been an initiate for years and years and years. You know, there's lots of them. You know, there's one chap who I love dearly. He was initiated in the 60s, and he hangs out with the druids and pagans, and they all say, oh, here he is, you know, he's been in the craft since the 60s. Yes, but he hasn't received training in the craft. He's been an initiate in the craft, and somebody at some time gave him his second and third, which he then left. Just initiation collectors without the training. And so you have to be wary. Now, this man with Kalisha, you know, it sounds as though he still wants that initiation. And I'd have to give it to him. I think I would have to give it to him.
No,
it's the priest, it's the healer in me. Because this man, he's set his path, he's set his sights. He's obviously attending something, maybe pre-initiation work or whatever, I don't know.
And clearly wants that path before he goes.
Yes, yeah. But I would in no way say that the healer delays the disease. That I would have to make very clear. When you go to the raw power of the light of the circle, wow, it speeds a lot of things up.
Well, that's one of the things that I was taught pre-initiation, and the question was, are you prepared for, which in a way I don't know how anybody can answer the question, honestly, but are you prepared for, if you believe in karma, all of your karmic lessons to be accelerated, and just basically everything, whatever your soul progression was, whatever pathway it was on, you're about to get, you know, a catalyst.
It never stops, actually. You think, oh, I've got somewhere, and wow, those lords of opposition, those lords of karma say, no, you're not, don't you dare get cocky, you've not learned everything.
No, but it accelerates it, it just accelerates.
Yeah.
So
it's good. I think the secret is to love it and laugh at it.
Oh gosh!
As you're picking yourself up out of the chasm. Yeah. Didn't she mention about the epileptics? Yes, I've initiated epileptics, and
I don't know. So she asked. Did
yeah,
she ask this one?
No, she said I'd said somewhere that I did initiate it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Physical handicap should not be a barrier to initiation. Now, in a similar line of thinking, I ask, how does Maxine address the issue of a person on medication for mental illness? So that's even another one there too.
Yeah, that's a difficult.
I noticed that she says she's initiated epileptics, correct, and asthmatics too.
Yeah, I initiated. What do they call them? Schizophrenic. Anyway. He was...
paranoid schizophrenic?
Yeah, that's right. He was brilliant. He's been an initiate now for perhaps 40 years. And a couple of years ago, I've come back to London, and he hadn't found a group in London that he was happy to work with. And like true priesthood, they have to go into... they have to express their priesthood in some way. And he went back to the Catholic Church and never denied his craft. And when I moved back to London, he started to visit every week. And I noticed, we didn't come into any circles, but I noticed there was something was happening. His aura wasn't quite right. And one day he said, I'm not coming again. And this was heartbreaking, because not only was he a priest that we'd known for so many years, he'd become a personal friend. Because not all witches in your circle are your friends. And yes, he'd got really poorly. And but but also encouraged by the church. Obviously, they didn't realise his illness. I said, why? He said, because you are still practicing witch. And I felt sad because I know that his health deteriorated then. And yes, he became very poorly again and is still poorly. Because when you initiate somebody like that, you have to be on the ball. Are they taking the medication? Now, when they go to church, the priest is working with the congregation. He was a member of the congregation, not of the priesthood. There is a difference. We don't have a congregation. The Catholic Church does. They don't consider it their responsibility to monitor somebody's medication. I, on the other hand, as a priestess in a circle, for instance, Scott was a terrible asthmatic. And do you know what asthmatics always forget? It's their inhaler. And it became such a thing. I mean, he'd have an asthma attack, and sometimes the inhaler wasn't enough. And he'd be whipped off to St. Mary's, you know, in the days of an oxygen tent, etc., etc. And survived. And survived. Loved his craft, loved his magical work. Cripples, people that can't walk, that can be a big problem. I mean, we lived in a basement, and getting a wheelchair down was not easy. And I think every coven has to look at itself. Can they accommodate? Can you accommodate them, a disabled person coming to your home, getting up the steps, getting down the steps? And basement steps in Candicard were very difficult. Each coven and each initiate that comes and asks for initiation is an individual. Now, there's so much, so many politics going on about who can be initiated and who can't. It is the individual who's seeking initiation. And it is you, as the initiating circle, who say yes or no. So it isn't their disablement or their ablement. It is their vocation. It is that something within them that says, yes, they will be able to work and attune to the magic. A lot of people can't. More people are refused initiation than accepted. Many more people. So just because a disabled person is told, no, this coven can't accept you, it's not because they're disabled or because they have an illness. It's because they didn't have that. Some witches call it, they didn't smell right. And the majority of people that didn't smell right were able-bodied. I'm talking psychically just before, in case suddenly you know, the next question is, do you initiate people with body odour? Well, yes, we had one called, and his feet stank. Oh dear, really badly. And he'd always have a bath before he came. And I used to say, get a bowl for his feet. Oh dear. And he couldn't help it. I mean, we didn't know when we initiated him that he had such bad smelly feet. Would we have initiated him if we'd have known? I don't know.
You would have put that one to the goddess.